All right, I hope you can see that question there for this experiment. Our first one, we're trying to find out which rock is most dense. And what that means is the rock packed full of rocky material, or is the rock full of air bubbles? Has it got spaces? Dense means it's packed full like a fist. If it is not dense, then it has lots of space inside it where the air can go. There are different types of rocks. As you can see, they don't look the same at all. You can see a whole bunch of different rocks here. This is basalt. This is quartz, this shiny one. We have sandstone, made from sand packed together till it becomes a rock. We have pumice here, or pumice. We sometimes see that one used in the bathroom. We have chalk, which we use for writing with. We have slate, which we use for making tiles on roofs, very useful rock. And we have marble that we use sometimes for special buildings, a beautiful, hard, strong rock then. So which one of these is very dense and which one is full of air bubbles, making it a lighter rock instead of a heavy rock? How are we going to find that out? You might get an idea from this picture here. If we put the rocks in the water, we can count the air bubbles that come out of them in a minute. And so I'm going to write those air bubbles over here to go with my different kinds of rocks. How many bubbles? Put them here, and then I'll have an idea if they are dense, not very dense, or extremely dense. So, to get started, I'll put that over there. I'm going to use my phone to set the timer for about a minute. And let's find the timer. There we go. We've got a stopwatch so I can start once I've put the first bunch of rocks in for a minute. So we're going to put the first ones on your list there. We're going to put in basalt. We're going to put in quartz. We're going to put in sandstone. Okay, I'm going to watch those. All right then. So we're in our first minute here. Now already from the sandstone, I'm counting 1, 2, 3 bubbles, 4, 5, 6. Lots and lots of bubbles coming out of sandstone. 7. It's probably harder for you to see them there. You might see them 8, 9, 10. 1 from there. I'm going to be writing these down on the chalk. So I've got here so far. I'm losing count of some of them now. There's so many. The sandstone's had about 20 bubbles so far. And there's more of them coming out. We're about half a minute in. Basalt has had 1. Quartz has had none. So loads and loads of bubbles are coming out of the sandstone. Any more? We're in the last 40 seconds here. 2 more there. So I'm going to cross that. 22. 23. 24. And our first minute's gone as just the last bubbles came up there. All right then, we've already got a very clear idea about this. So, the sandstone, still covered in bubbles there. The sandstone is not very dense. There is a lot of air pockets inside the sandstone. And the air bubbles are coming out. So I'm going to have to say sandstone, not dense. The basalt just had a tiny space for some air to come out, so we had just 1 bubble. The basalt is a dense rock. That is pretty full of rock. And then the quartz, well, it's hard to be better than that. This crystal feels like glass almost and is shiny like that. This rock is very dense. No space for air bubbles at all, so I'm going to put very dense. And we know that because there were so many bubbles coming out the sandstone, but there were none coming out of the quartz. All right then, going to try the next 3 rocks here. Pumice, I'm going to leave that aside for a moment. I'm going to put in chalk, slate, and marble. So, ready to start my timer. Reset. Chalk, slate, marble. Start. Okay, now, wow, the bubbles are just streaming out of the chalk here. There's actually way too many for me to count now. There's big ones, there's small ones. You can probably see some of them bouncing out here. It's a little bit tricky for you guys to see, but the bubbles there, yeah, I think you can see some of them rising up there and coming up to the surface. There's so many bubbles, I can't count them, so I'm going to have to write too many. That means we know something about the chalk. Is the chalk dense, or is the chalk not dense and got lots of space for air? Meanwhile, the marble is maybe letting a single bubble come out. And the slate, there's a few more bubbles there, although none of them have risen to this. Oh, there's one for the slate. So one there. And we're in 50 seconds to go. The chalk is just fizzing. It's almost like a paracetamol tablet or something just in the water. You can probably see the bubbles bouncing out there. Slate still had one. Marble, I can see a tiny bubble trying to get out, but like nothing is happening there with the marble. Okay, so our minute is up. And the marble, none. Slate, 1. And chalk, too many bubbles to count. So you could actually write then, is the chalk dense or not dense? Is the marble dense or not dense? What about the slate? There's one rock we left out, and that is the pumice. So I'm going to remove the chalk and let it dry over here. Remove the marble. Remove the slate. And this is my favourite one to put in the rock. In the water. Okay, so if I put the pumice in the water, this happens. It is the world's only floating rock. And I think we know exactly what to say about that. There's lots of air bubbles coming out of it, but it's so full of air bubbles. It has such low density, as we would call it, that it can actually float even though it is a rock. It's a rock that is that light, it's not dense at all. So pumice, definitely not dense. Right, if you need to watch this video again to check the results as you record them on the sheet, feel free to do so. Again, we're looking for which rocks were dense, very dense, not very dense, and not dense at all. Okay, and then I'm going to be back for the next one about how strong these rocks are.